Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. We promote positive method of training and behavior modification through stress-free methods. As part of that mission, we offer free webinars like the one you're about to watch. Subjects range from dog behavior, stress-free training, and other tools to help you understand your relationship with your dog. If you like the webinar, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when future videos are posted. Now enjoy the webinar.
Let's get started. Welcome to everyone to today's webinar, Multi-Animal Homes. This webinar is sponsored by Your Dog's Friend, a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. Since 2006, we've been promoting the use of positive dog training methods by hosting free webinars just like this one, posting valuable resources on our website, offering affordable training classes in person and online, and providing free advice and referrals. We are passionate about our mission, so we hope you will enjoy this webinar and spread the word about Your Dog's Friend. My name is Carrie Hoare, and I'm a volunteer with Your Dog's Friend, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Our speaker today is Amie Glasgow. Amie is the owner and trainer at Oscar-winning Behavior in Baltimore, Maryland. She's a certified dog behavior consultant and accredited dog trainer through the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants, a certified separation anxiety trainer, a certified control unleashed instructor, family dog mediator, and a diagnostics fun scent games instructor. Amie lives with her husband, young daughter, multiple dogs, cats, snakes, frogs, fish, and more. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit, so if you find this webinar helpful, please consider making a donation to help support these free webinars and other free resources that we offer. So without further ado, let's get started with the webinar. And Amie, I will let you take it away.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Carrie. As Carrie said, I am Amie, and she listed off a few of the animals I have in my house. It is a veritable cacophony here at almost all times. Cats, dogs, snakes, toads, frogs, fish, etc. And in addition to that, I celebrated a birthday in November and was given a kitten. So all of the things that I'm describing here are things that have been going on in my house for the past couple of weeks. We had cats and dogs together before that, and my husband felt we needed one more, and who am I to turn away a calico? So as I said, this is stuff that I try to take my own advice here as well, and hopefully some of this will be helpful to those of you with multiple pets. All right, so first I want to point out that species doesn't really matter. These issues can come up whether you're dealing with cats and dogs, cats and cats, dogs and cats, cats and dogs and pigs and chickens and hedgehogs and all kinds of other things. For the most part, animals learn the same. The motivators are different, but the actual method of learning is technically the same. So species doesn't matter much. Patience and common sense do matter very much. Chemistry matters. Not all pets are going to blend into friends. Crate and rotate is an option, as is rehoming. There should be no shame in doing what you need to do to keep everyone in your house, including the humans, healthy and happy and safe. So it is not a failure to have two animals who just can't get along any more than breaking up with a boyfriend is a failure or divorce is a failure. There are things that we might have done differently, but sometimes it's just not the right match, and that's okay. That said, if you are planning on adding someone into the house, or you're planning on working on relationships that are already there, you have to prepare. You can make escape plans, set up success stations, assign roles, practice drills, and purchase supplies. By that, I mean, I will frequently work with families who are having this issue, and I recommend things like Okay, this kid, your job is to go grab the leash, or your job is to make sure the back door is closed. Have everyone have an assignment, have everyone know where emergency supplies like leashes, indoor tethers, baby gates, things like that are, so that instead of standing there and trying to plan things out, everyone can just go into emergency mode. If there is a problem, it's important to remember that a vast majority of the time, it feels simultaneously like 0 time has passed and also 40 minutes, and it's usually actually somewhere in between. For the most part, if there is a problem, you do have time to take a deep breath and say, okay, the baby gate is over here. I want to grab that. I need to get a leash. You have time to stop and think about those things most of the time. And the more prepared you are in the beginning, the more you know whose job it is to do what, the less time you need to think things through. You just want to make sure you're practiced and prepared. I always caution people, it's hard to think about the negative things first. It's hard to think about what happens if there are fights, if there is a problem. However, the way you get through those times is to be prepared. So it is far easier to think about it now in a complete abstract than to have to think about it after the fact and go, I really wish I'd done this differently. When we're dealing with safety issues, you want to double up. We like to call it an airlock in some situations. You want to think about tethers and gates. You want to think about leashes and crates, gates and doors, crates and doors, things like that. One of them's going to fail. It's almost a guarantee. Somebody's going to forget to close a door all the way. A leash is not going to get clipped right, or it's going to hit the collar in some weird way that it comes unhooked. It is better to have 2 things there as a safety measure than to have one in case of equipment or human failure. I have a wonderful little tutorial on my website. You can go to oscarwinningbehavior.com/tether, or you can also go to my website, oscarwinningbehavior.com, and then there's a tab at the top that's called the notebook. And those are various articles and things like that I've written. It's a simple DIY tether that involves a leash and or a stretch of rope and a piece of PVC pipe, and it becomes a non-permanent tether that can easily move from room to room and is as sturdy as the door to that room. So you don't have to think of expensive, chaotic options that are going to be ruining your security deposits or drilling into walls or anything like that. There are options out there that are inexpensive, non-permanent, and still secure. Muzzles lessen injury. I don't like to consider them as one of our 2 safety measures, because for the most part, we should be going slowly enough that the dog doesn't need it. The muzzle is really there for our own mental safety, to know that if we do mess up, if we do go too close, if there is an equipment failure, there can't be too much damage done. But for the most part, once they're properly trained, dogs don't mind muzzles. They do need to be properly trained, but it tends to be humans who have the bigger hang up about them than dogs do. And then it's also important to remember that we are dealing with living sentient beings who have their own thoughts and beliefs and desires. And whether you are getting started or starting over, there is no set rule about how long this is going to take. My set rule is you cannot go too slow. You can go too fast. It is impossible for you to go so slow that the dogs or cats or whoever have some sort of permanent fallout that prevents them from being able to get along in the future, unless they weren't going to get along in the future anyway. You can go too fast and have things backfire, where you make an accident and then you've built in a negative association with those animals. So you cannot go too slow. You can go too fast. Almost anytime you adopt an animal, someone will say there's a 2-week shutdown, or gradually extend their freedoms at 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, or various other catchy little timelines that they like to tell you. And again, these are individual creatures with their own minds. So they don't follow calendars. It's great to have 2-week shutdown as a minimum in your mind. It's great to know that they will gradually become more comfortable with their new living situation and be more comfortable at 3 months than they were at 3 weeks, and then that they were at 3 days. However, they're individuals, and it is far better to just go based on the individual behavior of the animals in the home rather than trying to keep them to a calendar. Crate and rotate. I already mentioned it once in here, but it's one of those things that I recommend starting with from day one. It's how we did it with the new kitten in my house. And no, it can be a part-time thing or a full-time thing, by which I mean you might do something like your dogs are completely separate from each other, except when you go for walks as a family, and one person holds Fluffy and one person holds Fuzzy, and you're going on a walk together. That's fine. And if they're separated at home, that is crate and rotate. It can also be temporary or permanent. You can have this be a transitional period as the new animal is getting used to the home and the other animals are getting used to the new animal, or it can be something that goes on for much, much longer. For the most part, once you get into the habit, it's not as difficult, but it is very difficult for most people in the beginning, and that's normal. The way it works is one of the pets is having family time. They are out bonding with the family, playing games, getting fun training, going on walks, things like that, so that they can bond with the people. The other animals in the family are securely confined away. In the image here, we have a dog in a crate, but also behind a door. So we've got the crate and door double security there. The ones who are confined will be getting some form of enrichment. They might get a work to eat toy, they might get chewies, anything like that. However, it's also important to remember dogs and cats both sleep more than 60% of the day. Dogs sleep on average about 60% of the day. Puppies and seniors sleep longer than that. Cats sleep on average 75% of the day. Again, kittens and seniors sleep a little bit more than that. So keep that in mind. We are awake 2/3 of the day. So they are not awake as much as we are. And if we secure them away with nice, relaxing enrichment, there's a good chance that they're going to be asleep for a significant portion of their crated time in the crate and rotate dance. And they're not going to mind it nearly as much as we are. As I said, it tends to be a matter of routine, and once you get into the swing of it, it's not that bad. I know several people who have done this type of thing for years on end. It's an option. When you are introducing new animals, as I said, with my kitten, we started with crate and rotate. She is secure in a crate with a litter box. She's in a huge dog crate, not a little cat carrier. With a litter box, soft bed, lots of toys of varying textures and smells and sounds and all kinds of things like that, and also food and water. So she has everything that she needs when she is not able to be closely secured. And then we're doing things like having the kitten smell things that the kitten has played with, her food dishes, things like that come out and are introduced to the adult animals. This is what she's now been here for several weeks and is far more loose in the house, although not 100% yet. But yeah, we're doing slow introductions. We want to pair things that mean new animal with things that mean yummy food, calm, relaxing, happy feelings to the other dogs and cats in the house. Think about the sights, the sounds, and the smell of the other animals, and pair those things with good things for everyone involved. You want to teach them to be relaxed, and here is how. This is one of my all-time favorite exercises. It is a, I guess, variation. It's loosely based off of Suzanne Clothier's Really Real Relaxation Protocol. This dog, his name was Mowgli. He was boarding with me for a while. He is what I call, he stresses down. So he's actually very anxious, but he doesn't panic. He just stresses down. He sort of shuts down and gets really quiet. So you can see Heather in this video is trying to get him to lie down. She's not telling him a cue for down. She's not giving him a hand signal for down. She wants to use the treats by his nose. And the reason we don't say down or give a hand signal is I don't want him to think I'm doing obedience. I don't want him to go into that Sphinx-like posture and think, okay, what next? I sort of just want to bore him into being relaxed. So we'll just watch this. I do have a second dog who stresses up in just a moment, but this is Mowgli's very first time. You can see it's not an instantaneous thing. It gets faster each time you do it with that animal. And the backyard, not an ideal place to do it. You want to do it someplace where he's going to have a quieter time as well. But this is where I had for a training space that day. So if you can't get him into a down, you can sometimes lure them into a sit first. A lot of dogs can only handle thinking about their back end or their front end. And asking them to do both at the same time to get into a down can be tricky. So sometimes if you get them into that sit, and then they only have to worry about the front end to get into that down. I think he's going to end up going just into a down anyway, but. She's doing a really nice job of reading his body language. She's got hot dog there. And when she puts it at him, he turns his head away. You can see. So she backs off. She says, oh, okay, that's too much for you right now. Let me give you a minute. What if I scratch your neck? How can we get you to settle down? It's not pressure. You're not forcing him into anything. You're just helping him learn how to relax. There we go. So as soon as he did lie down, she sprinkled several treats right in front of him. And she's just going to keep him in that down position as much as she can, just using those hot dogs. This second dog is actually my dog who just celebrated her 10th birthday. She is not 10 in this video. She may have been 3. She stresses up, as you'll see in just a moment. Oh, look, there's mom. She got excited and saw me. She is a very well-trained dog, I should hope. And so going into the down position happens much, much quicker for her. However, so does popping back up. But you can see she's also very smart because she figures out that pawing at the hands won't work, but lying down does. Often when you, you know, pit bull, got to make out with people when you can. Often when you have a dog figure out the down very quickly, if you hold off on asking for that behavior again, sometimes they'll think about, oh, wait, what paid last time, and offer that down. And Elfie's very smart and she does that pretty quickly here. A lot of dogs who are very well trained can also struggle with this exercise a little bit in the beginning because they're so used to being told what to do. So when we're just saying, just follow the treats, that can be kind of confusing because they're thinking, but you just say a word and I do the thing. So try not to get frustrated in the earliest stages of this. It does not take as long as it feels like it takes. You don't want to treat when the dog is staring at the food or staring into your eyes. It is not Jedi mind tricks to get the food to them. It is actual relaxed behaviors we're looking at. And that was lovely because Heather fed right then, right when Elfie's tail slowed down, which is not sadness. Again, typical pit bull, her tail wags a lot. So it's actually the lack of energy put forth into the tail that makes the tail stop, not anything negative or unpleasant for her. She stood up. I think she's looking for bounced hot dog. That also is where hot dog was lying a moment ago. So. And there you see Heather didn't ask or gesture or anything. And Elfie went, oh, I should lie down here. And her tail has slowed down. Often you can see their breathing. You probably can't in this video. I can't in this video, but I know that breathing does slow. And when you're right next to the dog, you can see when their breathing starts to slow down. Yeah, and she figured out it's the down that's getting the hot dog. So she's not trying to get up anymore. And she's going to roll over onto one hip. That is generally a more relaxed down. Certainly dogs can be in that down and not be relaxed. But when they start in that squared off Sphinx position and roll over onto one hip, it is usually a sign that they are relaxing even more. And I think you can see just from the beginning that she's a much more relaxed mental state right now. She did just stand up to reach for that bounced hot dog. We're just going to wait and see if she offers that down again. I believe she does. There we go. When a dog is excited, their movements are often very jerky and snappy. And you could see that in the beginning with Elphaba, and you can also see now that most of her movements are much more fluid and smoother. Even her ears are moving less excitedly. She's not looking around as quickly. When she does turn her head to look at something else, it's a much softer, smoother turn. I usually recommend starting this someplace like your living room. Even on the couch is fine if you let your dogs on the couch. I do. You want to start where the environment is going to help them feel relaxed, and then very gradually increase that stimulation. So going from the living room to, for example, the kitchen is probably the next most exciting room in your home. Lots of food happens there. Dogs like that. It tends to be exciting. Next step would be a front porch or a back porch, depending on which has less traffic, and gradually increasing the stimulation there. If you're not doing this just to get along with other housemates, call your vet. See if you can do this in the vet waiting room or in an exam room. My vet does what's called happy visits, where you can come in and just give your dog a good experience at the vet and teach them, hey, this is the place where we go and relax, and not this is the place where exclusively I go and get jabbed with a needle. That will help make everyone's life easier at those vet visits. When you are doing this to help animals get along with each other, you want to decrease the distance without decreasing relaxation. So you teach the animals the relaxation protocol, get them very comfortable with that exercise, and then add the second animal in. And from there, you start with that second animal at a far enough distance that the animal who's doing relaxation can still relax. You can do this relaxation protocol with 2 dogs at once. But again, you want to start with them far enough away that they can still relax and easily do the exercise, and then very gradually move them closer together, even by something like 1 foot at a time. Just very, very gradually move them closer. If the one who is moving gets lots of treats and goodies to keep them from moving too close to the one who's relaxing. But again, it's about decreasing distance without decreasing relaxation. The goal for animals to live happily together is not that they can play well together, because animals do not play the entire time they're awake. The goal to have happy households is for them to, for the most part, not be concerned that the other guy is there. You want that other animal to be almost a non-issue for them. And the way to do that is to keep them incredibly relaxed with all exposures to them. I've mentioned doubling up on safety, right? Kitten's gonna kitten, believe me. You have to expect the unexpected. We want to consider their comfort, obviously, but that has to stand behind safety. Now, I don't mean I don't care if the dog is happy in a muzzle, we're putting it on him. I don't mean I don't care if the dog is in anguish in a crate, we're putting her in it. I mean, I'm going to let them stay a little bit longer in a crate than I would if I wasn't working on this exercise. I mean, they might not take as long a walk as they want to take because we're working on training on that walk. We still want to consider their comfort, but safety has to come first. If the activity increases, so should security. So this is my household just a couple of weeks ago. These are my 3 pit bull type dogs. And in that pen there is my 6-year-old daughter, who is keeping the kitten busy. You can kind of see that little white dot inside the blue thing is the kitten. The red thing is my 6-year-old. Her job is to keep the kitten in there, to keep her from climbing the gates, to, keep the kitten contained. The dogs in this case are unrestrained. This is after we had had the kitten for over a week at this point. The dogs were no longer excited just by the scent or presence of the kitten. It was mostly just when the kitten starts kittening that would be a little bit exciting, particularly for the dog on the right here, who's the youngest of the 3 dogs. The dog in the middle is the very red one you just saw in the relaxation video. The dog on the left is Linus. Bless his heart, we're not entirely sure he noticed there's a kitten yet. He's very sweet. And the dog on the right is Violet, and she is about 20 months old, so still a baby herself, still pretty excitable. All 3 dogs live with cats. All 3 dogs are great with other dogs and other cats to varying degrees, always with other cats. They've been great. But we haven't had Violet around new cats because she's only ever lived with the cats she's lived with. So we've been most cautious with her. She's also the most energetic of the 3 dogs. And so we are more cautious with her play style and things like that. So in this top picture on the left, when the kitten is contained, the dogs are unrestrained. And then several days later, we have the kitten not contained. You can't see it, but Violet is on a leash right here. I would not let these 2 animals this close if I didn't see body language like what you see in this picture, which is a very unconcerned little kitten and a very relaxed and happy dog. If they were staring at each other, if there was intensity, anything like that, they would be further apart. They would be separated until they can be calm. I want happy and calm as much as I possibly can. Whoop, excuse me. Once you've got that happy and calm, then you can add in movement. Again, you cannot go too slow. You can go too fast. But things that move are more exciting than things that don't move. That is their nature. Both cats and dogs are predatory animals. It is a survival instinct. If it moves, chase it because it might be your next meal. So you want to make sure that we teach them the other animal moving is not exciting. It's okay. One of the ways we do that is through pattern games like Super Bowls that can help teach them that movement is not a big deal. The way you play pattern games is you lay out visible targets. Obviously, bowls are the obvious choice with a game called Super Bowls, but paper plates, other things the learner can see and eat off of. Place one bit of food on the first plate and allow your pet to eat it. When the dog or cat makes eye contact with you, move to the next target and place food on it. So eye contact tells you to move to the next target and place food on it. And you're waiting for them to look back at you to get used to disengaging from the other animal and moving around the other animal without being overly concerned about them. The right picture here with this white dog, this was people who had, this dog had a nemesis down the street from him. I think most people with dogs have a dog that has a nemesis somewhere. We all know that one house where the dog just, there's something about him my dog hates. I don't know why. We actually did training here when the dog was not out, but it had gotten to a point with this dog where he was stressed out just going past that yard. And so we did Super Bowls out on the sidewalk in front of the yard, in front of the gate where this the nemesis dog lived. And what it means is he is allowed to look around. He's allowed to look inside the fenced yard to see if nemesis is there. He can do whatever he wants. And when he decides he's okay and checks back with you, we reward that by moving to the next bowl and giving him a treat. So it really gives him time to take in the environment and decide it's okay, and rewards him for coming back to you. And one of the things I like about Super Bowls is because it is eye contact and step forward for several steps before you put the food down, it rewards connection with you, not just glancing at you and immediately getting a treat. The dog looks at you and then moves with you, and that little chain is what's being rewarded there. The bottom left picture here, this brown dog and the blue plates, they were getting this dog used to a kitten. I don't know if you can see, because I've got a line on my screen, but there's a little arrow on the bottom there. The kitten was just off screen. I was somewhat limited. It was a Zoom call, so I was a little bit limited on camera angles that I could get. But the kitten was crated with someone giving the kitten treats through the crate bars. She had treats in the crate. So again, she was secure. She didn't really want to be in the crate, but she wasn't unhappy. She wasn't yowling. She wasn't uncomfortable in any way. But she was getting goodies. So she was learning, when that big brown thing is walking around, I get treats. That big brown thing must be a pretty cool thing. And the big brown thing, this lab mix here, was learning you can walk up to the kitten and walk away, and there's nothing stressful about this process. You don't have to chase. But Super Bowls is a great way to start getting movement going. The next slide, these dots, and pause that video. These, I adore this couple. I worked with them for almost 2 years, a couple of years ago now. I believe the video gets clearer as far as being able to see the dogs, but the man is walking a 3-legged Jack Russell named Apples. The woman is walking a stocky little pit bull mix named Presh. This couple was dating. They each had their own dog, and the 2 dogs had actually gotten into a fight before. As you can imagine, a 3-legged Jack Russell did not really hold her own entirely against a stocky little pit bull mix, but it wasn't a horrible fight, but it wasn't great either. There were injuries involved. The couple loved their dogs, but they wanted to move in together, and they contacted me, and they had, I think it was 18 months. It was definitely over a year before one of their leases expired. And at that point they wanted to move in together, but they wanted the 2 dogs to be comfortable. And what they said to me is, if we can't do this with them, then we just won't move in together until this is no longer an issue. Neither dog was particularly old, so they wanted to move in together, and they spent over a year working on these issues. They have since moved in together. They did several sessions after moving in together and have had 0 problems. One of the things we did with this exercise, with this couple, was Super Bowls. And so you can see both dogs are doing Super Bowls here. They're working independently of each other, but in a house, when they live together, sometimes the dogs are both going to be walking at the same time. And Super Bowls allows them to practice that behavior without worrying about what the other dog is doing. So here's this little video here. One of the reasons I bought them is they're bright and easy for you to see. They're just in my yard. They're just using those little Velcro wait her out dots that kindergarten teachers used to tell kids where to sit. Yes, that was really good. So Presh looked at Apple a couple of times, like, what's she doing? But she's not overly worried. She's got something super chewy. Would you give her chewing gum? This is several months into the process with them, because they started just relaxing near each other. Good, nicely done. Yeah, so the shorter grass is easier for Apple. So you may go to a place where there's pavement until Apple really understands. She's starting to get it though. Good. And again, what I like about this is they're doing dog stuff. They're moving around, but they're not fixated on each other. It's a great game to play, and you can practice it on your own without the other dog. But when they're living together, it's not going to be about you guys sitting there 24/7, ready to treat them every time they glance at the other dog. So we want to get them to the point where they're like, yeah, she's walking around. It's okay. One of the ways you could make this even more challenging, and this is not an inside thing because I think you'd need more space, is put those dots further apart and have Apple weaving in and out of the pattern while Precious going up and down the line. So that, again, Apple crosses right in front of her. There's not any treats on the ground because you don't put it down until Presh says she's ready for you to. So it's not like there's that threat there That was lovely. But you could go to a park and have just one string of targets and have them be far enough apart that Apple is working up here, weaving around, and presses all the way down there, but still is crossing, so it's not just parallel. Make sense? Yeah, now Apple gets it. There we go. The light went on. Yeah. Yeah, and the dogs like this. And one of the things they like about it is the level of control they have. What they're learning is, I make this game happen by connecting with you. So Presh and Apple are like, look how well I trained my person. Good. Good. Okay. Whenever you're dealing with it, working with an animal and its triggers, I want you to remember DNA. The closer the distance, the greater the number of triggers, and the higher the activity level of the triggers of whatever makes the pets nervous, the harder time they will have adjusting. So if you have one 14-year-old Labrador who can barely walk, sort of hobbling all over the house, that is probably going to be significantly less exciting and less nerve-wracking to a new pet than 3 Jack Russells who are bouncing off the walls. You want to change one aspect at a time. Whenever the distance or the number or the activity level becomes more difficult, the others must become easier to remain at the same level of chill. So when one challenge increases, the other challenges must decrease to remain at the same level of difficulty. I'm going to say it again. You cannot go too slow. You can go too fast. Motion is exciting. Instinct says chase it or run from it. Look at these 2 animals. Which of these is going to get your dog chasing them if it were to cross its path on a walk? You'd probably have to stop and wait for the tortoise to cross your path on a walk. But you want to build up that excitement slowly, use distance, use extra safety measures whenever possible. Remember that motion is exciting. It is very often alarming to people how much more exciting motion can be. It doesn't even have to be super high speed emotion or super high speed motion. It can be just going from lying still to standing up, lying still to getting up and walking across the room. It's not always a burst of speed that causes that excitement. And then whenever you have 2 animals, you want to introduce new toys and activities with caution. Resource guarding is natural and it is relationship based. What I mean by that is day 1, literally 10 puppies, 8 nipples. They learn in the very beginning, they're going to have to fight to some degree to get those resources. And additionally, I am fine if my 6-year-old daughter reaches over and takes a French fry from my plate. I am fine if my husband reaches over and takes a French fry from my plate. For the most part, I would not be okay with my clients doing that. And I like my clients very much. There's just a difference in what I am willing to share with people that I am close with and with people that I don't know as well. And dogs are the same way. Dogs will share some toys with some animals and not with others. So you want to make sure you're not assuming that because the dog isn't guarding one thing, they aren't going to guard something else, or that if they aren't guarding with me, they won't guard with you, and so on and so forth. It is okay to reserve specific toys and treats for alone time when they're crated during crate and rotate, for example. That can be a great time to give them their absolute favorite goodies and just reinforce that that alone time is a very positive thing for them. Play sessions should be balanced and brief with lots of breaks. Natural play sessions with animals tend to take a lot of breaks. They tend to go back and forth very much. If one animal backs away a little bit, the other should go back in after a breather so that you know that both animals are engaged in the play. If you feel like it's going on too long, frankly, even if you aren't sure or don't think it's been going on too long, it is fine for you to call them away cheerfully, give them treats for coming, and then let them decide if they want to go back to that play. If they aren't inserting those breaks, feel free to do it yourself. It is okay to separate your animals when they can't be closely supervised. It is okay to separate your animals when stressful things are occurring in life, workmen coming to the house. It's that season where there's lots of deliveries and people knocking on doors, parties in the house, that sort of thing. And it's okay to separate your animals when other strangers will be caring for them. If you have two animals that you feel like you have to monitor at all, don't trust someone else to read their signals the same way. Feel free to just say, these two dogs shouldn't be out together, to a pet sitter or something like that. There does not have to be an end date for security. You can't go too slow. You can go too fast. Always better safe than sorry. This center picture I took a day or two ago. This is that kitten. Again, we still aren't sure if Linus knows there is a kitten in the house. But Elfie loves the baby. And you'll notice that the youngest dog, Violet, is not there because she needed a break at that point in time. She wasn't being bad. She's been incredibly appropriate with the kitten the whole time, but she starts getting excited and playing too rough. So we just separate her. Not a big deal. She was in her bedroom with a little chewy stick or something at that time. Okay. All right. Any questions?
Yeah, there are a few questions. Tamara has a question. I have multiple working border collies and also a number of parrots. One of my border collies doesn't like any of my parrots, particularly when they clap their wings. I'm using management techniques at present. I'm wondering if there is anything that I can do to help the dog accept my birds a bit better, not creating commotion, throwing a tantrum for the sake of the other collies. I live alone with my animals, so it is hard to work with her as I can't be in two places at the same time.
Well,
I volunteer for I volunteer for the SPCA and commonly have injured swans in dog pens, and this dog doesn't pay any attention to them. I can recall her from pheasants, etc., so I wonder if it is a touch of jealousy as well as prey drive.
Without seeing it, yes, it is possible that there is jealousy and or resource guarding of some kind, you being one of the resources. When we're dealing with changing behavior, especially when there's potentially aggression involved, you want to start at a big distance. And sometimes, especially when you're dealing with house birds, for example, I assume that you do not live in the kind of situation where there are no walls to your home. You're probably limited by the size of whatever room they're in, even if they're in a large room. But what you can do is start with recordings of the birds making noise and get the dog very comfortable with those things. And you can fake distance by starting on a very, very low volume so that you can just barely hear anything that's going on in the recording. Have the dog doing the relaxation with that, gradually turn it up, and then do things like, again, with the birds contained safely in their room, maybe have the dog do relaxation right outside the room and gradually move inside there. I would start with relaxation. I know Border Collies are really good at, okay, tell me what to do next, and not so good at, I'm good, I'll just chill out here. Particularly working line Border Collies. So the relaxation would probably be very beneficial to the dog in just learning this is not an exciting thing.
Let's see, at the very beginning of the webinar, you had a picture up on the muzzle stuff. We have someone who wants to know what brand of muzzle was in that picture.
What type of muzzle you use is going to depend on your individual dog's face shape and skull type. And I do recommend basket muzzles. They tend to be the easiest for breathing and all of that. You can go on Amazon or various other sites like that and look at a whole bunch of different muzzle recommendations. Jafco is another one that I recommend that is not technically a basket muzzle, but the animal can still drink and breathe and eat easily through it. I do not recommend for training purposes those little nylon muzzles that the vet uses. Those are for short-term use only. They are specifically for the purpose of preventing the dog from being able to bite someone who's doing things like jabbing him with a needle. So it is great if you can train your dog to a more appropriate muzzle and then also use that at the vet. But yeah, you can just look up basket muzzle and then compare shapes, especially not knowing what type of dog you have or what head type you're dealing with. I don't really have a specific brand I would recommend, and there's a few that come in that sort of beige plastic that was in that picture. And fit is going to be the most important thing for the most part.
So I added, if you look down in the chat, I put the link for the Muzzle Up Project website. They've got some fabulous references in there, how to size a muzzle, what you're looking for, that kind of thing. Let's see. So Elizabeth says, I like the 3-3-3 because I will evaluate how the past 3 has gone. And I realize the progress we've actually made. And then I feel okay that we're not perfect yet. So she was looking back when you were talking about timing and patience.
I think
for people who don't know what that is, can you explain what the rules of 3 is and where you see pros and cons?
The 2-week shutdown, and then the 3-3-3 is 3 days, 3 weeks, and 3 months. And different places that I've seen have different, this is where the animal should be. I think it's fine to use those as evaluation guidelines, so that you're not pushing yourself too quickly. So I think it's fine to look at 3 weeks and say, is everyone more comfortable at 3 days? Is everyone more comfortable at 3 days than they were 3 days ago? And at 3 weeks, are they more comfortable now than they were 3 weeks ago? And at 3 months, are they more comfortable now? But I think having goalposts like at 3 days, they should be doing this. And at 3 weeks, they should be sleeping with their butts touching. Or I think when you come up with goalposts like that, it can be problematic. Using them as individual evaluations is great. Anything that you need to slow yourself down and to take an honest look at what progress you have made, and to take that honest look at what needs the most work, I think those are great. Again, I've seen different goalposts depending on who says them as far as what should be happening at 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. So that can vary. My most important point is just that there are not set goalposts for sentient beings. Just like saying at 3 months you should be engaged when you're dating someone new. That's just not how life works. So evaluation is wonderful. True assessment is great. Forcing an animal into somebody else's guidelines is less great.
Excellent explanation. Let's see. Brittany is wondering, what about a dog that expresses interest and affection with lots of nipping and biting with both humans and pet siblings?
If I see that happening, I try and separate them. That's probably overstimulation. Even even if it is truly affectionate, it's not really appropriate. And it's probably, if they are calmer, then that probably happens less. So you want to really reinforce in a calm way the times that behavior is not happening. If a dog is not mouthing and nipping and using teeth in any way, that's when they get the most affection. And if they do tip over into using teeth, then I would remove affection, possibly remove the other animal, just make it less reinforcing for them to do that than to behave inappropriately. Depending on the situation, sometimes you can rely on the other animal to do the correcting for you. When Violet, my 20-month-old dog, came home, she was an 8-week-old puppy. She weighed less than several of the cats we have in the house. So I let the adult cats tell her, you can't do that. Because I know those cats, and I know that it was not going to be a mauling or danger to her eye or anything like that. They were going to give appropriate corrections there. You don't want someone who's going to tip over into way too severe a correction. But if you can't rely on the other animals to do that for you, the best thing is to just separate them out and say, oh, sorry, you did that thing, that ends your time. And that's usually enough that the animal learns it. If it truly is affection, then they start going, but I wanted to be with them, and whenever I do this behavior, I get taken away from them. I'm going to stop doing that behavior.
So Barbara has a question. When I took my adolescent poodle, standard poodle, I was told he got along well with cats, but even a year later, he sometimes chases my cats. At other times, he play bows to them, and they sure don't want to play with him. What should I do at this point?
Yeah, in a dog's eyes, chasing does not mean not getting along with. And so it doesn't sound like they were incorrect when they said that. However, I would work again on relaxation. I would really get your recall super, super rock solid so that if you see a chase starting to happen, you can call him off of the cats. And if he play bows at the cats and they respond in a body language way that means they don't want to play, you call him away and heavily pay that reward, and he starts to learn that the cat's behavior is actually a cue to turn away from them and find you. It takes repetition. It's not going to be a 1 or 2 time thing, especially if we have a history of doing it, because we have to unlearn old behaviors in order to put the new ones in. But you want to teach the dog to separate away from the cats, and that is more rewarding than chasing. So practicing that relaxation around them, making sure that if he is playing, the cats are just as involved and enjoying the game. And if the cats do say no, you heavily reinforce the dog turning away from the cat.
Excellent. So I think this one came in when you were talking about the Super Bowls between the 2 dogs that the couple was trying to move in together. So she's asking, at what point can we leave the dogs alone with each other? What would be the defining behaviors?
There is no such thing as defining behaviors for that situation. It's going to depend entirely on the individual animals and on their individual relationships. Statistically speaking, the worst and most injurious dog fights are between 2 spayed females, and that tends to startle people. My 10-year-old American Pit Bull Terrier and 7-year-old American Bully can be left alone together and out with several cats because they don't chase the cats ever. They back off immediately when the cats correct them if there's any issues. The 2 dogs have a very nice relationship. The one who's 45 pounds is definitely in charge of the 90-pound one. We know that if she says no, he's going to back off. My 2 females, the 10-year-old and the 20-month-old, have never had an issue and likely will never be left alone together without, they're alone together in our backyard. They're alone together in a room if we're in a different room, but they're not going to be left home alone together. Because at this point in time, my youngest still isn't through social maturity. So her personality is still evolving. And the oldest is the spicy one. So it's all about individuals. There is nothing wrong with saying, yeah, they're just not going to be alone together. That's absolutely fine. Again, they're probably going to be asleep when you're not there for a vast majority of the time. They don't need to be interacting with each other nonstop. It's sort of a risk assessment kind of a thing. Right now, the situation in my house is we have a kitten who weighs about 3 pounds. The next smallest cat is about 9 pounds, and then it goes up from there up to a 90-pound dog. With 2 other dogs in the process and a bunch of other cats. So when we're not home, the kitten is back in her crate. And in fact, when we're not conscious and home, the kitten is back in her crate. So even overnight right now, the baby is separated. We give her wet food right before bed, so she's a little bit more likely to sleep through the night. But when we can't immediately correct the problem, it's not a risk I'm willing to take. It takes time to get used to each other. It takes time to adjust to all of that. And there's not this is when they do this behavior, that means they can be out together. And when they do this, something happens. It's all about relationships and the individuals involved.
So we've got a question about size and age differences in mingling dogs. I never leave my 3 dogs unsupervised, but the other night with me sitting on the couch with all 3, the doorbell rang and the Jack Russell got up and ran to the door and knocked one of the smaller dogs off the couch unintentionally. No one was hurt, but these are all the kinds of things that keep me from letting them all mingle all the time together.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's absolutely something you have to think about. You can you can look at that and say, okay, I probably need to work on the Jack Russell not being quite as excited about the front door. Honestly, I probably need to work on that with my own dogs, and I don't because I got other stuff to do. But you can look at things and say, okay, these are all triggers that are excitable, and I probably need to at least be able to contain the situation if excitement flares up in one of those situations, but I can't contain that situation if I'm not there. So you don't have to have the animals out together. If you have 2 little ones that are fine and a third one who is spicier and is more likely to get excited, you can have the 2 little ones together and the spicier one separated when you're not able to control things. There are a lot of options out there. It does not equate not being a happy home if you are not all out all together all the time. You've got ways to do this. You can, like I said, separate them out when you're not there. Work on reducing those individual triggers as much as you can, making sure that everyone is okay, and just really sort of balancing all that you have there is easier than trying to strive for perfection each time, and also easier than holding your breath and taking a risk and just hoping it works out.
Yeah, I'm working with I've got a 13-year-old Aussie who spends a lot of her time on the other side of the baby gate away from the other dogs because she just wants to nap. She doesn't want to be around the
Right.
hustle and bustle.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're looking at. Again, my youngest dog is 5 years younger than the next. And so she gets a lot of breaks away from them because they're just tired. And they just don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, they play with her often, but when it gets to be too much, that's not anyone's fault. That I love my kid and I don't want to go sit in the middle of a daycare room most of the days,
Yeah.
we need breaks, and animals are the same way. So there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong.
that's why we don't have kids when we're 75.
Exactly.
This is a good one about food motivation. How do you apply the games to cats who aren't food motivated? And I would say they probably have the same question about dogs.
Yeah. So they are food motivated because they need food to live. You can play with different things. First of all, I do find the canned chicken that you can buy in the tuna fish aisle. It also comes in pouches now too, but again, it's near the tuna fish. That tends to be more universal for both cats and dogs than tuna fish, which for some reason people are convinced cats will love. So that's a great fresh-ish chicken option. That said, you can do things like play with teaser toys, or some cats really like being brushed, or anything that they love to do. A small pad with catnip on it or something like that. You can use those as reinforcers, but it is unusual that there is zero food that an animal will like, just because we need food to survive. Instinct says food is a good thing.
Yeah, one of the things I find with clients is those that free feed their animals have animals that are less likely to be motivated in the moment, because why would you go clean your bedroom for $5 when you've got $100 in your piggy bank?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely an option. There is a link to appetite issues and stomach problems and anxiety as well. There's a lot of anxiety receptors in the gut system. I always say that's something that we knew without knowing we knew it, in that we have said, oh, I was nervous, I had butterflies in my stomach, or I had a pit in my stomach, or whatever. We tend to describe anxiety in gut related things. And yet it didn't occur to us that that actually meant that's where anxiety was taking place. So if you find your animal is really unusually picky about food, especially when you're doing training situations, it's worth talking to your vet about, to see if there's something they can do either for anxiety or for other gut related discomfort. But for the most part, animals get hungry, and if you can limit what they're getting when you're not doing training, not in any kind of starvation way, but just knowing that they are not completely gorged at all times of the day, then you can probably find some high value foods like canned chicken or something like that that will do the trick.
So this one goes into a topic that would be good to address. Any modifications for a bonded pair we adopted from rescue together, brother and sister, so litter mates? They're good with each other most of the time, but there are times when one wants whatever the other has. Also, they play sometimes, I think, a bit rough. They're 13 months old. They're lab mixes. They crate them separately when they're not at home and can't supervise them as aggressive chewers. So basically, how do you deal with litter mates that you're bringing into the home?
Anytime you have multiple animals, it complicates things, and litter mates are their own additional complication. Basically, you want to work on all of these behavior issues individually and then bring them together. You want to do the relaxation with the dogs apart. You want to make sure you're doing lots of socialization, and exercises that involve the dogs going out in public and meeting new people and staying home and meeting the animals in the house, and all of that separately before you bring them together. And when you bring them together, you're going to have to go back, maybe not to ground zero, but maybe, I don't know, what would ground one, ground two? I don't know what comes after ground zero, but it's not all the way back to the beginning, but it's going to be several steps back when you put them back together. Litter mates are kind of a tricky issue in that it is anecdotally common to have behavior issues in at least one of them when you have a problem. unless you've done a lot of work preparing to do it separately.
All right, so this one is from Laura, and I have a 9-month-old and a 4-year-old Havanese. The puppy's very assertive and started trying to mount the other dog. The other day they were struggling over a toy. The puppy started what I think was very aggressive growling and lunging at the other dog and didn't stop when I tried to pull her away. I'm concerned that this is a sign of a budding aggression problem with the puppy. She's also very reactive to people and other dogs, but not sure what to do.
Havanese aren't supposed to do that. Yeah, so yes, to contact a trainer. I do things like this online all the time. You want to make sure, as I mentioned with one of the earlier questions, make sure that the dog's recall is as solid as you possibly can make it. The reason is you want to be able to separate them without there being any negative association. So ideally not grabbing collars or harnesses or bodies and pulling them apart from each other, but instead calling them away and giving them lots of treats so that when they hear that, it's like, oh, this is a really cool thing happening over here, gotta go, instead of them associating, I connected with the other dog and then I got in trouble. The other dog got me in trouble. We don't want them to think that. It does sound like possibly you suspect resource guarding. If that's the case, it's usually fairly simple to separate what resources are. You know, feed the dogs separately, give them certain levels of chews and toys and things like that only when they're being separated. If what they're resource guarding is relatively unpredictable for you, there are training methods that we can do to work on that as well. But I would probably, in this case, if there has been a tussle, start over, separate the dogs for a period of time, and work on that relaxation, and then gradually increase their exposure to each other again, sort of pretending that they hadn't had any of that happening, but just go nice and slow, reintroducing them.
Excellent. So we're down to the last 2 questions. Okay, I have a dog and a cat. About a year in, they had a fight. Then another one a few months later, after I'd been working on disengage with them. We're still working on repairing the relationship. The cat is okay with the dog, but the dog is still fearful of the cat. Dog is also dog reactive and people reactive. The dog still just pays a lot of attention to the cat, but I think it's more to get to the treats than anything else because they're able to relax around each other. Is there any next steps you can recommend? She does do crate and rotate, and their interactions are constantly monitored with multiple safety points.
Good. So that's where I would factor in the Super Bowls. In fact, I used that most recently just a couple months ago with another client who had a big chonky pit bull and a adorable little cat. What I like about the Super Bowls is that it's not the dog seems fixated on the treats, and if they're too fixated on the treats, you can go to a slightly lower value treat, but it's actually the dog turning away from the cat that gets the treats going. They don't get treats just for staring at your hands. They get treats for not caring about the cat, for looking at the cat, seeing that the cat's there, and then moving away from the cat in any way. That's what gets them treats. You can put a baby gate or something in there so that they're separated, and then have someone playing higher activity games with the cats. Never use a laser pointer if there's dogs involved, but cats can play with teaser toys or toss a little ball or something like that. So the cat moving around and doing the sort of silly, jumpy, twisty things that cats do that dogs don't do nearly as much. And the dog can learn that those behaviors do not mean the cat's coming for him. And really just keep working on that relaxation and gradually increase the movement and really reinforce their ability to turn away from each other.
So last question that I see in the chat, Barbara has been caring for an adult cat since her Icelandic sheepdog was 5 months old. The dog is now 12 months old. So she's been with the cat for 7 months. It is eventually leaving. The question is, the issue is that the dog barks if she pets the cat, picks up the cat, says the cat's name, etc. It does not appear to be resource guarding me or the cat. Seems to be more like she considers herself in charge of the cat. What steps what steps do you recommend to have her with the dog more comfortable with Barbara interacting with the cat? Problem will eventually resolve when the owner reclaims her cat, but the timeline could be a while.
A herding breed trying to control the situation. I just don't believe you. No, so so I would consider it resource guarding to a degree. It doesn't sound like resource guarding in an aggressive way, but that's not the exclusive definition of resource guarding. What I would do is start to make the association for the dog be when the cat gets pet or brushed or whatever, good things happen for the dog. So I'm gonna pet Fluffy the cat, and I'm gonna give, I don't know why Steve is the name that popped in my head. I'm gonna give Steve the dog a Kong while I'm petting the cat or something like that, so that the dog starts to learn mom paying attention to this other creature makes good things happen for me, and beyond that, good things that are fairly relaxing. Chewing on a Kong, a chew toy, high value treats in a fairly relaxed setting, that sort of a thing. We're building up that association that the other animal makes good things happen, and specifically mom's attention to the other animal makes those good things happen for me as well.
Excellent. So here's a comment which will be a great way to wrap it up. Pamela says, thanks for the great webinar. She feels validated by taking 18 months to introduce her new predatory dog to her kittens, heavily reinforcing anything that was not fixating on a cat, then another 6 months before she would let the dog unsupervised with the cats.
Yeah.
At that point, the cats were very comfortable around him. They were sleeping together and he was relaxed around them. So yes.
Yeah. Take as much time as you need. You cannot go too slow. You can go too fast. And especially when you're dealing with a dog that you do feel is predatory towards cats, it can get bad fast. So it is far better to go slow. It sounds like you're doing everything right. Good for you.
So I guess that wraps it up for the day. Amie, thank you so much for presenting such great information in this webinar. It was really helpful.
Good.
Generated a lot of great questions from people, gave some people some great answers. And we will conclude the webinar there. Thank you, and thank you, Amie, and have a lovely day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.